What's up guys, this is John with Skate Better, and today we are doing the Spitfire Conical full wheel review. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to do before we get into the review is just show you guys what this wheel looks like so you can compare it to other wheels. So this is the 52mm Spitfire Conical full wheel, not to be confused with the regular Conicals, which I have on this board right here, and I will be trying out next. So these are the Conical fulls. I think they're a little bit more of a popular wheel than the regular Conicals. From what I see, these are mostly what are sold in the shops. I don't see a lot of regular Conicals. It's usually the full because there's such a small difference in what the wheel does. It's like you might as well get the extra millimeter or whatever. And I've just seen these a lot. I've seen a lot of people skating them, so I wanted to give them a try and review them. I've been skating them for about, I'd say 2.5, probably more than that, actually probably about 4 months. I threw them on, I think, the Toy Machine deck. I definitely threw them on the Anti-Hero deck, and I rode that for about 4 months. And then I also used them on the Primitive that I had set up, which I'm now switching over to different bearings and wheels. But I wanted to give you guys a nice review, and I wanted you to see what this wheel looks like. So this is the Conical full. This is the regular Spitfire Formula 4 classic shape. So as you can see, the riding surface, or the surface right here, is a lot wider, and it's a little bit more, I'd say the angles are a lot sharper, obviously, in the drop-off of this part of the wheel. It's a lot less of a sharp angle on the edges here. It kind of like rounds out and goes out this way more instead of going diagonally down that way. So just generally, you can see it's a lot fatter of a wheel. It's a lot wider of a wheel. We'll get into what that meant for me. This is also just like a regular Bones. This is a 51.2, so both of these are 51 millimeters. Excuse my dog. Both of these are 51 millimeters, and then this is a 52. And then this is a 53 from Richta. So you can see the Richta has a little bit more riding surface, but definitely not as wide to the Conical full. So to my knowledge, one of the widest wheels you can skate as like a street wheel. And let's get into the review, pros and cons. Okay, so the first pro is it's a really stable wheel, and it's stable from balance. So what I mean by that is like for manuals and things like that that require balance, or even just standing on your board in general, it's pretty stable because the riding surface is really wide. So if you imagine that this was like a penny or a nickel, it'd be super thin, definitely be a little bit harder to balance on, or would feel not as great under your feet balance-wise than like a nice wide surface, right? So a little bit easier for balance, a little bit more stable, I guess is what I would say. The speed, so I think a thicker wheel or a fatter wheel is supposed to be faster in general, and what I noticed is like when I was going over crusty streets or crusty, just really bad street or road or whatever, that's when I felt like it was definitely a little bit faster. Other than that, I don't think like regularly on smooth ground it was that much faster than any other wheel that I skated. So that's just me being honest, but I definitely think it goes over rough surfaces pretty quickly, which is to be expected from a wider wheel. The next thing I would say is traction for turns. So like when you're turning on your board, you definitely have a little bit more traction and stability through those turns. So like there's less of a chance you're gonna slip out and things like that, which I actually liked. Definitely less slipping out in general. So like for grinds, any type of like ledge, 50-50, all that stuff, definitely felt like a really, really stable wheel and like wasn't gonna slip out. Like it locks in really, really well into ledges because obviously it's a thicker riding surface, and this part here is not as rounded or angular. It goes out, so you have this, which is a pretty flat surface, as opposed to it being a more rounded surface. Definitely helps you stay locked in for things like that. I would say it's pretty stable for flip tricks. So once again, like when you're rolling sideways like this, there's not a lot of like back and forth movement when you're setting up for a trick because it's wider and stable, as opposed to like a thinner wheel like this. If I'm setting up for a trick and I'm off balance, I might be like wobbling back and forth a little bit more. But since this one is wider and it takes longer to turn because it has more traction, I felt like it was a little bit more stable when I was setting up for flip tricks. The last thing I want to say is Spitfire Formula 4 I think is a great formula in general, and this wheel definitely lasted a long time. So it has almost no flat spots on it. It's in pretty good shape. I definitely say it started as a 52 and right now it's about like a 51, all the wheels, so they've definitely shrunk a little bit, which is to be expected. But I could totally keep skating this wheel if I really wanted to. I just feel like it's been almost 4 to 5 months. It's about time for a new wheel. This one definitely does have some dings and scratches and things like that on it. So I'm gonna try something else because that's what I do. So let's get into the cons. So I don't have a lot of cons for this wheel, but I will share from my personal experience what it felt like. I've only skated that other shape that I've shown you, kind of like a classic Spitfire shape, for the first like couple of years, or for a while. Most of my skating has been done on this type of a wheel. And switching to this wheel, the first thing I noticed is it felt really sticky. So not like a Spitfire formula type of thing, but more of just like, because it's such a wide wheel, it just felt sticky. It felt really, it even sounded sticky, like rolling on the pavement. It was really weird, especially like the first place I took it was like a basketball court, like a cement court, and it felt really sticky. It just even sounded sticky. And sticky is just a weird sensation. It almost feels like you don't want to ollie or you don't want to do something because like your board's not going to come with you, but it also feels super anchored down at the same time and really stable. It's like riding around, super fun, but like getting ready to do a trick for the first time, it just felt a little weird, but it goes away pretty quickly. The second thing I would say is it feels a little chunky because it's such a wide wheel. Like when you're doing flip tricks or things like that, it just feels a little bit chunkier when you're flipping. And the word on the street is a thicker wheel, thicker wheel, whatever, will be a little bit heavier. So that can also affect your flip tricks too. I would definitely say that it affected flip tricks the slightest amount. Maybe it was the weight, but I think what it's more of is because it has so much traction, when you're doing like a 360 flip, now you're scraping away all this extra material here to do that trick, to like scrape it under you, whether it's a pop shove it or whatever. There's a lot more friction. So you do have to put a little bit more into this axis of the rotation to get the wheel off the ground and to get it going, as opposed to like this is set up mechanically to just be able to slip out really easy. So once again, on ledges, in 50-50s and things like that, you don't slip out, but when you're doing 360 flips or flips where you need a lot of like, a lot less friction to be able for the trick to happen, or even like 180s, things like that, anything that requires less friction, you definitely have to put a little bit more oomph into it. And like Powerslides, that's a great example. Powerslides, it takes a lot more effort to power slide in this wheel than like this wheel. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's not like a 3 to a 10. This was like a 6 to power slide. This would be like an 8 or a 9. So just know that like it's reasonable, but it's not like a game changer. And the last thing I would say, I don't know, I think that's about all the cons I have. Other than that, it is a really solid wheel and it will definitely last you a while. I would definitely recommend picking this wheel up if you're curious. I think it's like 32, 33 bucks. I am going to be trying the regular conical shape, so not the conical full, because it's a little bit thinner, and just the tiniest bit, like half a millimeter or millimeter or something, and I feel like that is going to give me just what I need to be able to do my flip tricks a little bit better and smoother. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys like this review. If you've skated this wheel, let me know what you think. And if you did like this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. I threw in a little clip. My ankle is still a little injured. I was able to get a really quick clip, if you could call it, of just like a manual and a really quick revert the other day, skating along South Beach with my quarantine mask on, being safe. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I threw it in. If you want to see clips of me skating this wheel, check out my anti-hero deck review. That has some footage and it's all skating this wheel. So thanks again, you guys. Take care. I'll see you next time.